For 4,000 years, the galaxy had lived under a fragile peace. The Great Galactic Council, an alliance of dozens of species, prided itself on maintaining order, diplomacy, and a strict no-war policy. Across countless star systems, cultures mingled in cautious harmony. Trade flourished, and the old wars became stories told to children as bedtime fables. In the outer rim, near the Millennia belt, humanity thrived on the fringes, considered eccentric and unpredictable, but ultimately harmless by most. Earth's descendants had carved out a cluster of colonies, living in a chaotic mix of frontier pragmatism and relentless humor. To many alien neighbors, humans were like cosmic court jesters, loud, weird, and somehow endlessly entertaining. The Korleth Dominion, however, did not see humor in humanity's quirks. The Korleth were tall, scaled, and cold-blooded, both literally and figuratively. They saw order, discipline, and control as the natural state of the universe. Millennia of peace bored them. To the Dominion's generals, the humans were a minor annoyance, an unimportant footnote before the glory of galactic conquest. On a rain-soaked morning, a human colony Arden 9, the tranquility shattered. Massive Korleth warships darkened the sky, blotting out the twin suns. Their ships were sleek, menacing, and deadly silent, designed to crush resistance with overwhelming force. Colonel Marissa "Brick" Jennings stood on the observation deck of the colony's command center. Her sharp eyes tracked the incoming vessels. Around her, soldiers hurriedly prepared defenses, but Marissa's lips twitched, not with fear, but with a smirk. "Sir, Korleth Command is requesting immediate surrender," reported Lieutenant Chen, holding a holo-communicator. Marissa took the device, and the screen flickered to life, revealing a scaly Korleth general in full battle regalia. His voice was cold and commanding. "Humans of Arden 9, you faced the might of the Korleth Dominion. Lay down your arms and spare yourselves." Marissa's smirk widened. Without hesitation, she pressed a button and broadcasted a hologram across the Korleth fleet's comm channels. The image was simple, an innocent Earth video of a laughing baby, its giggles echoing across space. Subtitles scrolled beneath. "You just woke the dragon." The Korleth warships shuddered, an unintended effect of the hologram's encrypted data stream. Communications jammed. Command consoles blinked in confusion. The baby's laughter seemed to mock their solemn threat. Marissa turned to her officers. "That's just the welcome party. Let's remind them why humans don't just surrender." In response, the colony's artillery battery unleashed a barrage, not of missiles or lasers, but of rubber chickens rigged with electromagnetic pulses. The rubber fowl soared through the sky, exploding in bursts of light and disabling enemy sensors. On board the Korleth flagship, officers scrambled as their systems flickered and failed. The cold discipline of the Dominion was unraveling in the face of human absurdity. Back at Arden 9, soldiers laughed as they watched Korleth pilots struggle with malfunctioning instruments, their warship decks filled with unexpected banjo music and static-filled broadcasts of Earth's greatest comedic moments. The war the galaxy had forgotten had begun. But humanity wasn't just fighting for survival. They were fighting to turn the tables with a lethal weapon no one expected: their relentless, unbreakable humor. Colonel Marissa "Brick" Jennings was not your typical military officer. Where others saw rigid hierarchy and strict procedure, she saw opportunities for mischief and unconventional tactics. Her reputation on Earth, and now across human colonies, was legendary. A soldier who wielded sarcasm like a weapon and laughed in the face of danger. The Korleth Dominion's War Council had predicted a swift surrender from humanity, or at worst, a brutal but conventional resistance. What they got instead was an unrelenting barrage of unpredictability. As the Korleth fleet hovered above Arden 9, Colonel Jennings stood on the forward battery command post, watching the enemy vessels with keen, amused eyes. The previous day's rubber chicken EMP attack had caused confusion and frustration among the Korleth commanders, but the humans were just getting started. A Korleth envoy demanded a formal parley. The request was delivered via a towering, scaly officer named General Vrax, whose expression was a permanent scowl. The humans were expected to follow a diplomatic script: surrender, apologize, and prepare for occupation. Marissa Jennings was having none of it. When the envoy's message arrived, Marissa replied with a hologram of her own. This time, a live feed of her and her squad launching a barrage of pie tins off catapults, accompanied by a soundtrack of old Earth rock anthems blasting from makeshift speakers. "Welcome to humanity's war," she said dryly, "where pie is might, and sarcasm is strategy." The Korlath were baffled. They expected threats, not theatrical absurdity. Their superior battle AI tried to process this anomaly and failed. Meanwhile, in Earth's cyber frontiers, a teenager named Rico sat in her cluttered room, surrounded by screens and wires. She wasn't a soldier, nor a diplomat, just a prodigious hacker bored with routine. Rico's fingers flew across her keyboard as she infiltrated the Korlath flagship's communications network, bypassing layers of encryption with ease. Her goal? To have some fun and throw a wrench into the Dominion's grand plans. Within moments, she replaced the Korlath war anthem, a solemn, intimidating composition, with a bizarre mashup. Banjo music, snippets of human comedy routines, and a viral video of dancing goats. The flagship's bridge erupted in chaos. Officers shouted orders, but their comm systems kept glitching, broadcasting the ridiculous sounds across the entire fleet. "Is this some kind of joke?" hissed General Vrax, slamming his clawed fist on the console. "It's a war," Marissa said over the comm, her voice calm but mocking. "And we're here to win it with style." The human tactic was clear: disorient, confuse, and wear down the enemy's morale using their own technology. Twisted into weapons of humor, Korlath commanders fumed, their cold logic crumbling against a foe who didn't play by their rules. Their war computers sputtered, unable to predict the next bizarre human move. Colonel Jennings convened her team. "Remember, the Korlath think this is a game of precision. We're rewriting the rules. Keep them guessing. Make 'em laugh, then make 'em regret it." The battle for Arden 9 was no longer about mere firepower. It was a battle of chaos, wit, and unexpected defiance. And humanity was just getting started. In the dark corners of Earth's sprawling megacities, where neon lights flickered over cracked sidewalks and data streams flowed faster than the wind, Rico was king of the digital underworld. At 17, she had already hacked into more secure systems than most operatives had seen in a lifetime. But none of that mattered until the war began. Rico wasn't enlisted. She wasn't a soldier. She was a civilian who saw a galaxy on the brink of chaos and decided to have a little fun. Her small room was a tangle of wires, screens, and blinking gadgets. The glow of the monitors illuminated her face as her fingers danced across the keyboard, fingers flying with a speed and precision that rivaled the best military hackers. On one screen, a real-time map of Korlath communications buzzed with encrypted chatter. On another, lines of code scrolled like digital rain. Her target, the Korlath flagship Vraxis Prime. The moment the Korlath launched their invasion, Rico saw an opportunity. Their arrogance was their weakness. They underestimated the human spirit and underestimated her. She grinned as she bypassed the outer firewall and slipped through layers of security like a ghost. Within seconds, she had control of the flagship's broadcast system. The first message was subtle, a looping clip of a dancing goat wearing a tiny helmet, bobbing to a catchy tune. It was absurd, ridiculous, and perfectly timed. The Vraxis Prime bridge exploded into confusion. Officers tried to silence the broadcast, but it kept playing, looping endlessly. Then Rico upped the ante. She unleashed a torrent of carefully crafted mimetic warfare. Cat videos, satirical news reports about Korlath generals losing their scales in embarrassing ways, and a barrage of Earth's most notorious internet memes. The flagship's communication arrays jammed under the flood of data. The Korlath officers' faces twisted in frustration as they struggled to maintain order. Some attempted to manually override the system, only to be met with static interspersed with the sound of a human child giggling uncontrollably. On Earth, news feeds exploded. Rico's exploits quickly became legendary. The meme queen. Some called her. Others whispered about how one teenager was turning the tide of an interstellar war from behind a keyboard. Despite the levity of her pranks, Rico knew the stakes were deadly serious. The Korlath were ruthless, but she believed in a simple truth. Laughter was an unexpected weapon, one the Dominion had no defense against. In a rare moment of quiet, Rico leaned back and glanced at a quote on her wall, illuminated by a flickering neon sign. "When the world laughs, no tyrant can stand." She smiled. Back aboard the Vraxis Prime, General Vrax paced the command deck, enraged and humiliated. This is not war. This is mockery. Find the source. Eradicate it. But no system could isolate the virus spreading through their comms. The laughter, the memes, they infected every data node, every soldier's mind. Morale plummeted. And yet, amid the chaos, the humans continued to fight with fearless resolve. Their weapons were unpredictable, their tactics baffling, but their spirit undeniable. "Let them laugh," said Marissa Jennings over the secure channel. "We'll take it from here." And the war, once thought to be decided by fleets and firepower, was now being won by humor, wit, and the fearless heart of a teenage hacker who laughed at death itself. The planet Ashenvale was supposed to be a simple strategic victory, a key mineral-rich world that would give the Korlath Dominion a crushing advantage. Their commanders had prepared meticulously. Shock troops armed with plasma glaives, precision orbital bombardments, and tightly coordinated battle plans designed to overwhelm the humans with sheer force and discipline. What they hadn't prepared for was the absolute chaos that was humanity. As the Korlath fleet descended into Ashenvale's thick crimson forests, Colonel Marissa Jennings rallied her forces with a grin that spelled trouble. "Remember," she barked over the comms, "the Korlath think they've got this figured out. They're about to learn how unpredictable we are." Human soldiers moved like ghosts through the trees, their exosuits camouflaged with hacked-together tech and scavenged foliage. But their arsenal was anything but conventional. Flamethrowers disguised as party blowers and sudden jets of fire streaking through enemy lines. Explosive pizzas lobbed from homemade catapults detonated with bursts of smoke and sound, disorienting Korlath squads. And then there were the booby traps. Korlath troops charged, confident and precise, only to be met with an unexpected weapon. Whoopee cushions rigged to release noxious gas and a sudden barrage of confetti. The sounds echoed oddly through the battlefield, a surreal combination of gasps and suppressed laughter. "This isn't a fight, it's a circus," hissed one Korlath officer as he slipped on an oil slick coated with glitter. But the humans didn't stop at theatrical. They struck with brutal efficiency beneath the madness. Rail-propelled slugs made from decommissioned smartphones tore through enemy armor. Drones disguised as innocuous wildlife swooped in to deliver explosive charges. From the orbital command center, Marissa watched the chaos unfold, smiling. "This is our battlefield advantage. We don't fight by their rules," she said. "Confuse them, frustrate them, make them doubt everything they know." The Korlath war computers, designed to anticipate enemy movements down to the millisecond, sputtered as human unpredictability shattered their algorithms. They struggled to coordinate counterattacks against an enemy who seemed to anticipate every move, not through calculation, but through sheer improvisation. Amid the chaos, a Korlath general called for retreat, but his voice was drowned out by the roar of human laughter echoing through comm channels and the bizarre soundtrack of rock music mixed with static and goat bleats blaring from captured transmitters. In the thickest part of the battle, Marissa personally led a squad through a narrow ravine, tossing out smoke grenades that smelled faintly of cinnamon rolls, a bizarre choice, but effective. As the Korlath scrambled to navigate the smoke, human snipers took positions. Never underestimate the power of weird, Marissa said, firing the first shot. The Corleth Dominion suffered their first true defeat on Ashenvale, not by overwhelming force, but by being outmatched in chaos, humor, and heart. When the dust settled, the humans had turned the tide. And across the galaxy, whispers began. Humanity was not just a strange, noisy species. They were a force unlike any other. The galaxy held its breath as representatives from the Corleth Dominion, and humanity gathered on the neutral station Celestial Accord for a peace summit. The Corleth came prepared to assert dominance through cold logic and intimidation. Humanity arrived armed with something far more disarming, a razor-sharp sense of humor. Ambassador Julio Varga, a former stand-up comedian turned diplomat, was humanity's secret weapon. Tall, quick-witted, and sporting an ever-present smirk, Julio was infamous for his ability to slice through tension with a well-timed joke. The summit chamber buzzed with an uneasy silence as Corleth delegates took their seats, their scaled faces hardened by centuries of pride. Julio stepped forward, clearing his throat. "Ladies and scales," he began, "we meet today to settle our differences like civilized beings. Or, like those awkward family reunions where everyone ends up yelling, and someone loses an eye. But let's hope not." Murmurs rippled through the room. The Corleth ambassador, a towering figure named Shirak, glared with reptilian disdain. "We did not come here for entertainment, human." "Oh, no," Julio replied. "This is serious business. The kind where I roast you so hard, you'll be begging to sign peace treaties just to escape the embarrassment." The room tensed. Julio launched into a blistering series of verbal jabs, each more cutting than the last. He mocked the Corleth obsession with their scales, joking that if they polished any harder, they might just reflect their own arrogance back at them. He ridiculed their ancient dance rituals, clumsy attempts at courtship that looked like a drunken starfish in zero gravity. Even the Corleth military discipline was fair game. "I've seen salad bars with more order than your battle formations." Laughter erupted from the human delegates. Some Corleth diplomats shifted uncomfortably. A few younger officers tried to hide smiles. Jrak's face turned an angry shade of crimson, a color rarely seen on a reptilian. "This is an insult to our species. You mock our traditions and our honor." Julio raised an eyebrow. "All in good fun, General. Humor is a universal language after all. Besides, if you can't laugh at yourself, how can you expect others to take you seriously?" As the verbal sparring escalated, Corleth delegates began whispering among themselves, clearly unsettled by the humans' fearless irreverence. Some diplomats quietly slipped out of the chamber, unable to endure the relentless roasting. Then Julio did the unthinkable. He challenged Drak to a dance-off, right there in the summit hall. "If you think you're better than humans, prove it. Winner takes peace treaty." Drak's scowl deepened. "You would mock us with such childishness." "Hey," Julio grinned. "Sometimes the best way to settle an intergalactic war is with a little groove." What followed was a spectacle the galaxy would never forget. A tense, awkward dance battle between a stiff-scaled warrior and a nimble human diplomat who moonwalked, spun, and busted moves with ridiculous confidence. When Julio landed the final pose, the chamber erupted in cheers and laughter. Even some Corleth diplomats clapped, though grudgingly. Jrak, defeated in both pride and rhythm, stormed out, slamming the door behind him. The peace talks collapsed, but humanity had scored a victory of a different kind, showing that their strength lay not only in weapons, but in the unyielding spirit and humor that no enemy could silence. The galaxy held its breath as representatives from the Corleth Dominion and humanity gathered on the neutral station Celestial Accord for a peace summit. The Corleth came prepared to assert dominance through cold logic and intimidation. Humanity arrived armed with something far more disarming, a razor-sharp sense of humor. Ambassador Julio Varga, a former stand-up comedian turned diplomat, was humanity's secret weapon. Tall, quick-witted, and sporting an ever-present smirk, Julio was infamous for his ability to slice through tension with a well-timed joke. The summit chamber buzzed with an uneasy silence as Korlath delegates took their seats, their scaled faces hardened by centuries of pride. Julio stepped forward, clearing his throat. "Ladies and scales," he began, "we meet today to settle our differences like civilized beings. Or, like those awkward family reunions where everyone ends up yelling and someone loses an eye. But let's hope not." Murmurs rippled through the room. The Korlath ambassador, a towering figure named Shrak, glared with reptilian disdain. "We did not come here for entertainment, human." "Oh no," Julio replied. "This is serious business, the kind where I roast you so hard, you'll be begging to sign peace treaties just to escape the embarrassment." The room tensed. Julio launched into a blistering series of verbal jabs, each more cutting than the last. He mocked the Korlath obsession with their scales, joking that if they polished any harder, they might just reflect their own arrogance back at them. He ridiculed their ancient dance rituals, clumsy attempts at courtship that looked like a drunken starfish in zero gravity. Even the Korlath military discipline was fair game. "I've seen salad bars with more order than your battle formations." Laughter erupted from the human delegates. Some Korlath diplomats shifted uncomfortably. A few younger officers tried to hide smiles. Shrak's face turned an angry shade of crimson, a color rarely seen on a reptilian. "This is an insult to our species. You mock our traditions and our honor." Julio raised an eyebrow. "All in good fun, General. Humor is a universal language after all. Besides, if you can't laugh at yourself, how can you expect others to take you seriously?" As the verbal sparring escalated, Korlath delegates began whispering among themselves, clearly unsettled by the humans' fearless irreverence. Some diplomats quietly slipped out of the chamber, unable to endure the relentless roasting. Then Julio did the unthinkable. He challenged Shrak to a dance-off, right there in the summit hall. "If you think you're better than humans, prove it. Winner takes peace treaty." Shrak's scowl deepened. "You would mock us with such childishness." "Hey," Julio grinned, "sometimes the best way to settle an intergalactic war is with a little groove." What followed was a spectacle the galaxy would never forget. A tense, awkward dance battle between a stiff-scaled warrior and a nimble human diplomat who moonwalked, spun, and busted moves with ridiculous confidence. When Julio landed the final pose, the chamber erupted in cheers and laughter. Even some Korlath diplomats clapped, though grudgingly. Shrak, defeated in both pride and rhythm, stormed out, slamming the door behind him. The peace talks collapsed, but humanity had scored a victory of a different kind, showing that their strength lay not only in weapons, but in the unyielding spirit and humor that no enemy could silence. The galaxy was changing. What began as an unlikely human resistance had evolved into a full-scale cultural revolution that no one, not even the Korlath Dominion, could ignore. The battlefields were no longer just places of destruction. They had become theaters of chaos and comedy, where humans rewrote the rules with every punchline and prank. The Korlath, once revered for their unyielding discipline and ironclad control, now struggled to hold their own against an enemy who fought with laughter as fiercely as any plasma cannon. Colonel Marissa Jennings stood on the bridge of the Ardent Phoenix, the flagship of the human fleet. Around her, officers buzzed with excitement and renewed energy. Sensors flashed with reports of Korlath fleet movements, but the humans had the upper hand. "Command," Marissa said into her communicator. "Deploy the humor drones to Sector 6. Initiate Operation Chucklestorm." A grin spread across her face. Across the void, tiny drones, painted with bright colors and equipped with speakers, swarmed into the heart of the Korlath fleet. They broadcasted a relentless stream of humorous content, slapstick videos, ironic motivational speeches, and an endless loop of one of Earth's oldest comedy routines, Charlie Chaplin's The Tramp. Korlath warships flickered under the onslaught. Crew members staggered from their posts, clutching their heads as laughter rippled uncontrollably through the decks. Command systems failed as officers doubled over in helpless amusement. General Vrax paced furiously on his bridge, his voice a growl of disbelief. This is madness. End this farce at once. But it was too late. The Korlath command structure was unraveling, their morale shattered by an enemy who wielded chaos like a blade. Meanwhile, on Ashenvale's scarred surface, human ground forces pressed their advantage. Their unpredictable tactics kept Korlath squads off balance, while the ever-present humor drones maintained the psychological assault. Marissa's second-in-command, Lieutenant Chen, laughed as he relayed incoming reports. "Sir, Korlath troops are surrendering en masse. They're quoting human jokes during their capitulation." "Good," Marissa replied. "Let them know the price of underestimating humanity." The turning point came when the Korlath attempted a desperate counterstrike, an elite force tasked with capturing the human command center. As the squad advanced, the humans unleashed their secret weapon, a holographic projection of Earth's greatest comedians delivering rapid-fire roasts tailored specifically to each Korlath officer. The effect was instantaneous. The elite squad faltered, their discipline crumbling as laughter echoed through the corridors. One by one, they dropped their weapons, surrendering not to bullets, but to humanity's irrepressible spirit. News of the defeat spread rapidly. Across the galaxy, the tide had turned. The Korlath Dominion, once invincible, now faced a challenge unlike any before, a fight where laughter was not weakness, but a weapon of devastating power. Colonel Jennings looked out at the stars, her voice steady and clear. This war isn't just about survival. It's about proving that the human spirit, and a good joke, can topple empires. The galaxy was listening, and humanity was ready to deliver the final act. The stars shimmered coldly above the battlefield as the final confrontation loomed. The Korlath Dominion, battered and broken by a war they never expected to lose, faced the human fleet gathered in orbit around the shattered world of Ashenvale. Colonel Marissa Jennings stood tall on the bridge of the Ardent Phoenix, her gaze steady and unyielding. Around her, the crew prepared for what would either be the end of the conflict or the beginning of a new galactic era. "Today," Marissa said over the ship's intercom, her voice calm but resolute, "we don't just fight for survival. We fight to show the universe that strength comes in many forms. That laughter, ingenuity, and spirit are weapons just as deadly as any gun." Below decks, Rico's fingers flew over her keyboard in the cyber warfare room. The mimetic virus, the final weapon in humanity's arsenal, was primed and ready. The plan was simple: broadcast an irresistible combination of humor, hope, and human resilience across Korlath communications to shatter what remained of their will. As the fleets closed, General Vrax emerged on the Vraxis Prime's command deck, his eyes burning with stubborn fury. "This farce ends now," he roared, signaling his forces to charge. But the moment the first Korlath vessels crossed into human firing range, something unexpected happened. Their communication systems hijacked. The Dominion fleet was bombarded not by lasers, but by a tidal wave of holographic jokes, slapstick routines, and human celebrations projected across every surface. The holograms were accompanied by a synchronized soundtrack, a medley of human laughter, from the giggles of children to the hearty chuckles of old soldiers. Korlath soldiers hesitated, their anger giving way to bewilderment, then uncontrollable laughter. Ships wobbled, formations broke, and commanders dropped their weapons, clutching their sides. On the bridge of the Ardent Phoenix, Marissa allowed herself a rare smile. "It's over," she said softly. "We won." The Korlath fleet surrendered hours later. The Dominion's leaders, humbled and exhausted, agreed to peace terms brokered by Ambassador Julio Varga, the man who had turned war talks into a cosmic comedy roast. The galaxy celebrated humanity's victory, not just for the triumph of arms, but for the triumph of spirit. Back on Earth, news feeds exploded with celebrations. People cheered, danced, and laughed, knowing that their species had faced extinction and responded not with despair, but with hope, resilience, and humor. Marissa and Rico, unlikely heroes from two very different battlefronts, met quietly on the Ardent Phoenix's observation deck. "You did good," Marissa said, clapping Rico on the shoulder. Rico shrugged with a shy grin. "Guess it's true what they say. Laughter really is the best weapon." Marissa nodded, looking out at the stars. And humanity's just getting started. The war was over, but the legend of how humans delivered devastation and humor to an empire would echo through the cosmos forever, a story told wherever freedom and laughter mattered most.